Fort Kochi, Kerala, India. Presented by Holidays on Shoestrings. Kerala, often referred to as God's own country, is a paradise that takes one's breath away. But Kochi, and in particular the historic area of Fort Kochi, has to be my favorite city in Kerala, where one can feel and breathe history wherever one looks. A small fishing village that became the first European township in India. This historic place still remains as a symbol of its glorious yesteryears. The uniqueness of this place is that the ruins of its magnificent history have remained same even amidst the modern day developments. Historical significance is the main attraction of Fort Kochi among tourists. Now the first question you'll probably ask as soon as you arrive is, where is the fort exactly? Well, not to disappoint you, there isn't one anymore. Except maybe for that one cannon. Chinese traders were regular visitors to Fort Kochi in the early 14th century. Finding similarities between Kochi and China, they named it Cochin, which are two Chinese words, Cochin, meaning like China. They introduced and installed the Chinese fishing nets in this area. But they would never have dreamt that later this would be one of the main tourist attractions of Fort Kochi. Erected in the 15th century, the nets use an ancient technique to catch the fish. They are still in use, particularly in the monsoon season when the water is high. They have most likely been rebuilt since then, but the technique is the same that the first traders used. The best place to watch them in action, being lowered into the sea and the catch being brought in, is from Vasco da Gama Square, aptly named after the guy who founded modern Cochin as we know it today. It's a narrow promenade that runs along Fort Kochi beach, and they are most photogenic during sunset. During the pre-colonial period, the then Raja of Kochi granted Fort Kochi into the hands of the Portuguese, and it remained under their possession for about 160 years. During this period, they had constructed many buildings resembling European architectural style, later invaded by the Dutch and followed by the British. The St. Francis Church, built by the Portuguese, is the oldest European church in India, where the tombstone of Vasco da Gama lies. A traveller, even in death, his body was moved to Lisbon in 1880. Walking on down the road from St. Francis Church towards the beach, we passed the famous Dutch cemetery, believed to be one of the oldest cemeteries in the whole of India. It's closed off to visitors most of the year, but we had a peek from the outside. Another Portuguese church, the Santa Cruz Cathedral Basilica, was one of the finest examples of Roman Catholic churches in Kerala and visited by tourists the whole year round. Endowed with architectural and artistic grandeur and colors of the Gothic style, the artwork and details were magnificent, definitely worth taking a peek inside. The Matangeri Palace was built by the Portuguese in the 16th century, presented to the Raja of Kochi and renovated by the Dutch 100 years later. It now houses a collection of portraits of Maharajas, some of the best mythological murals in India, as well as old Dutch maps, royal palanquins, and period furniture. It also had many exhibits from the colonial eras and of the Rajas of Cochin up until the present day. Another cornerstone in Fort Kochi's colonial history was when the Dutch took over the spice route. There wasn't any spectacular battle between the Dutch and the Portuguese or anything like that. It was a simple trade deal. After that, the Dutch moved in and made their own stamp on the place. thus earning the nickname of the Dutch Palace. Photography was pretty strict, with guards glaring at you over your shoulder, and as videos were prohibited, I had to make do with photos. Jewtown in Mattancherry was where the oldest community of Jews in India used to reside since the times of King Solomon in 900 BCE. Jewtown Road was a narrow street between Mattancherry Palace and the Paradesi, translated as foreigner synagogue, lined with shops. As we walked down the street, we found many brass ornaments, perfumes, spices, all sorts of garments, and plenty of souvenirs. It is one of the oldest antique markets in India. After browsing around, we headed to the Paradesi synagogue, which was built over 400 years ago and was the oldest synagogue in the Commonwealth. Kochi once had a large Paradesi Jewish population, but it has been dwindling for decades, with only a few left now. One curiosity about this synagogue was that services were hard to organize, as 10 men were needed for the quorum to pray. So sometimes Jewish visitors were invited so that they could have a service. Every 2 years, Kochi celebrates the Kochi-Muziris Biennale, the largest art exhibition and the first of its kind held in the country. And it has resulted in some great pieces of street art in Fort Kochi, particularly around the Bazaar Road and Kalvati Road area. We paid a visit to the Dobigana Public Laundry, which was another Dutch colonial site where the Keralites would wash and prepare the uniforms for the Dutch army. Today, it's a community washing, drying and ironing service and helps support the local community. Jail of Freedom Struggle, where a host of freedom fighters from the state were imprisoned, has now been turned into a museum. For such a small fishing village in Kerala, Fort Kochi really packs a punch with history, attractions and local cuisine. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe and tell your friends about it.